You know what I find fascinating? When people deny the reality in front of them and try to make up excuses as to why something is taking place. For example, I'm entertaining people on Twitter that are claiming that the homelessness is caused by an increase in rents. Okay, it's possible that it might exacerbate somebody going out onto the street. But the simple comeback to that is, how come all the illegal aliens that can't even get jobs in America legally are not so represented amongst the homeless populations? Why? Because they have a family ethos, family oriented, and I live in Mexico, so I can tell you that with utter sincerity that the nuclear family is a tradition with greater cohesiveness today in Mexico than it is in America, where Black Lives Matter announced they were going to try to destroy the nuclear family, that the left is continually trying to do by incentivizing a woman to have children outside of wedlock so she can collect welfare. These are the incentives being offered. But back to the homelessness, they aren't represented because they all cram into one little space. And if I'm not on drugs, as 90-something% of homeless people are, or mentally addicted, that probably accounts well over 95% of them, despite whatever statistic they're going to tell you. You're going to ask homeless people, do you think that they're always going to give you the honest answer? These same homeless people that in the article that I read claim that if only they had a little bit more money, that maybe they could have staved off becoming homeless? No, because you always have the option, if you have friends, if you haven't used up all your chances, to go and sleep on a friend's couch. How many of us in our lives have done that when we were new to a city, when we were out of sorts, when we lost a job and had to move? I know that that happened to me when I was in college, when I was fresh out of college, and that helps for sure. But if you're a drug addict, if you're drug-addled, if you're mentally ill and you've used up all your chances on people's houses, then maybe you sleep out in the middle of the street. But the idea that these people are going out and performing this study and getting real results and then completely ignoring that the most disadvantaged people in our economy, those illegal aliens, are not represented out on the street. And why is that? They seem to think that being drug-addled has little to do with it, that the price of housing has a greater impact on an individual becoming homeless than being drug addled. No, because I can always go, as I said, and sleep on a friend's couch if that's the case for a long time. And then I can move to another friend's couch after I use up the 30 days at my friend's until I get my act together and get a job and go out and earn more money. There are various ways to cope with increased rents, earning more money, roommates, sleeping on a friend's couch. All of these things will alleviate the increased prices, which, by the way, are only done, it only happens in part because the Democrats in San Francisco and Los Angeles don't allow for new housing. Anytime that a new building is proposed, it's impossible to get through. And then they are blaming the fact that prices are rising as they print more money, as they demand more money from you and sending the well-to-do, like myself, outside of the state. I left 5 years ago as I saw what was taking place, as I realized that California was not going to be the place for me to raise my family. Homeless people in my area of Los Angeles, which didn't used to have too many of them, are walking by my wife as she's pushing our new baby in the stroller, muttering to himself, playing with his dick. All right? That about did it for me. You can see it coming from a mile away, and now it's exacerbated thanks to Democrat policies. And these people, they try to tell you it's not the fact that these people are out of their minds and on drugs, and that this is unfortunately a progressive problem that deteriorates the body and the mind as it goes on. Those are the truths. I have great sympathies for these people, and I would not be against taxpayer dollars going to fund psychotic hospitals somewhere out in the valley away from everybody where they can work through these challenges. I don't have too much problem with that. But to try to tell us, don't believe your lying eyes, close your ears to the realities of what you see, and believe our studies that, by the way, get more money inputted into the system, more taxpayer money going to solve these problems that only seem to be exacerbated whenever they try to solve them. These people are putting themselves on the pedestal of being our moral superiors, that we must listen to them because they know what's best, and we're too stupid to look at the reality of the situation. Look, I've served homeless people before many times, and when we were doing it in the mission, there was one man who had worked his way up into becoming one of the supervisors, who was a homeless man. And the moment that he starts talking about drugs, you can tell that he's been off of them for a little while, but the moment that he begins this discussion, something just takes over his body, and it's just like you can sense it. There's something, that deep craving that's been unfortunately embedded into his system, that wants to be satiated by the drugs. And this is just how it comes out. All of these people, according to them in the homeless shelters that I've operated in for some period of time, told me that virtually every single person there is there because of drugs or mental problems. Yet they want us to believe that the primary factor in creating homelessness is our increased rents. Does it exacerbate it? Sure, it's possible. I'm sure that there are a couple of people that have ended out on the street because they had nowhere to go and their landlord jacked up the rent and that kind of ruined their life. Well, then allow people to build. Don't overtax people. Don't make it impossible for a landlord to operate his business without raising prices in order to account for increased risk. But that's really a side of the point. I get tired of these SJWs that demand that we listen to them when nothing that they do works. And then they say, don't believe your lying eyes. And it's the same way that they are going to tell you that East Germany created the Berlin Wall in order to keep the West Germans out of their socialist utopia. That is the same thing that they're going to tell you. Don't believe your lying eyes as to who's climbing over the wall. Our policies work. Just stay the course and we'll finish destroying San Francisco once and for all. America on the downhill. These people have no right to speak because nothing that they say ever works. They're destroying San Francisco. They're destroying California, and the United States is going down with them. I live in Mexico, and things aren't nearly as bad here in terms of the homeless situation because people have families to go to, because there's a sense of community here and more conservative oriented values of taking care of one another, if you have friends, if you're related to them, etc. So to all you SJWs that continue to espouse for the homeless industrial complex, that continue to want more of our tax dollars to go into that, I might listen to you if anything that you did ever worked. But it doesn't. That's clear. You can see it on the streets of San Francisco. So keep on talking, and don't blame me for shutting my ears from your lying mouths.